BBC Radio 5 Live.
Now, next tonight, the largest annual gathering on climate change, the UN Climate Summit, COP27, starts today in Egypt's coastal city. Will this year's COP be different to previous years and tackle the climate issues? Listening to this, Professor Rupert Read from the University of East Anglia, author of the book called Why Climate Breakdown Matters. Good evening, Rupert.
Good evening, Stephen.
Good evening. Is the world anywhere near the grip, the climate chaos that many people are saying exists and will get worse? How close are we?
How close are we to getting a grip on it? Not close at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're not close at all. We're way off the pace. And, you know, there's almost a ritual now, Stephen. Every year people come to COP 1 year on and say, oh, we must do better this year, we must try harder. And, well, I'm not playing along anymore. If we actually want this endless story of failure to change, then we have to change the story. And the way that we do that is by starting by admitting failure. That would be the thing which would be really game-changing for Rishi Sunak tomorrow, if he were actually willing to stand up and, rather than just doing what politicians love to do, which is paint pictures of sunny uplands with loads of green energy and so on, actually absolutely implausible coming from him who's been wedded to the fossil fuel industry. If rather than doing that, he were to stand up and say, you know what, I'm sorry that I haven't had a grip on this issue such that I wasn't even going to come here. I'm sorry that my country has failed so atrociously over the last few years to actually do anything serious on this issue. I'm sorry that the world is going to crash through the 1.5 safe upper limit for global heating. That would be the way to start, because that would be honesty. That would be leveling with the public. That would be truthfulness. And that's what we need if we're actually going to ever really get started on the task that is ahead of us. Some kind of real honesty, leveling with the public. And that's what I would say to listeners. Demand that your politicians and the media and scientists, everybody, demand that they level with you about how serious the situation is. Because until we get clear on that, we can't even get started.
Here's your problem, Rupert.
Yeah.
Maybe the politicians aren't doing it because the public isn't demanding it. And maybe the politicians are taking their lead from their electorate, and maybe this is not top of the agenda. So it's not the leaders you've got to blame, it's the people listening to this programme.
Well, you're right that there is
the population.
There's a chicken and egg. Yeah, there's a chicken and egg situation here, isn't there, Stephen? Someone has to make the first move. But, you know, I don't think it's fair to blame the public when the public still haven't really been told the whole truth. So no one is telling people that we've absolutely chronically failed and now we're facing absolute catastrophe. They're not telling people that. What they're telling people is, oh, well, it's going to be okay if we all kind of pull together and we try a bit harder and make a few more pledges and put a few more solar panels up and so on and so forth. There hasn't been honesty, there hasn't been disclosure to the public. And the public need to be enabled to understand what it actually means. They need to be painted pictures of what the future will look like. And those pictures need to be quite vivid. They need to be pictures of what will happen if we carry on our current path of the...
Well, paint them for us then.
Okay, I will, yeah. So if we carry on anything like our current path, then the probability is that at some point in this century, and in my view, it could be within a generation, we will be facing societal collapse. Our kind of complex societies cannot endure the level of climate chaos that has started ramping up over the last several years and will just get worse and worse exponentially if there isn't an absolute turnaround in the way that we are proceeding. Now, what's the alternative? The alternative is not some kind of...
Well, before we get to the alternative, hold on. Before we get to the alternative, so flesh that out for me. Societal collapse because what will be happening around us within a generation, in your view?
There are different paths this could take. There are different possible vectors. In my opinion, the most likely is climate chaos-induced water shortages and food shortages, which will dwarf the famines that we've started to see developing in some of the worst affected parts of the world. They could affect countries like our own, the UK, very severely. Our country is chronically food insecure. We're not able to feed ourselves as things stand, which is a ridiculous situation to be in the future that we are moving into. to. That is only one possible scenario, but in my opinion, it's quite a probable scenario. It's been under-investigated, but the research that we've been getting in the last few years suggests that the food system is more and more vulnerable, and that with each year we are ramping up the pressure on it and the likelihood that it will start to give out.
So there will be quite a few people either in denial or for whatever reason they don't believe you. So what does the research show? How you say this is probable. Tell me about the research now. What is it saying that leads you to determine this is probable?
Well, what the research is showing is that with each passing year, we move further and further into unknown territory, and we put further and further stresses on a very stressed and very complex international food system. And what the research is showing is that as we move into a situation of being beyond 1.5 degrees of global overheat, which is the safe limit, which we are not going to stay within now, that The Economist, for example, magazine this week has on its front cover, 1.5 is not alive. What Alok Sharma has been telling us over the past year, tragically, it's not true anymore. So we're moving into a situation where we're no longer within the agreed upper safe limit that countries agreed at and since Paris. And with each passing year, therefore, the food system is more and more vulnerable to weather systems which are more and more chaotic. So the percentage likelihood of some kind of what is called multi-bread basket failure, the bread baskets of the world failing simultaneously, the percentage likelihood of that occurring is very small at the moment, but with each passing year it goes up slightly, and it carries on going up, and it carries on going up until we stop temperatures from carrying on going up. So there will come a time in the 2030s perhaps, or the 2040s, if we're, in my view, somewhat fortunate, it will be as far away as the 2040s, when we could get an event where we do get multi-bread basket failure, where most of the world's sources of grains fail simultaneously in a given year. And when that happens, it will not just be the global south countries, but it could also be some global north countries, which will be in an extremely food vulnerable situation.
In your view, have we left it too late?
Okay, the question, have we left it too late, I always have to say is an incomplete question. The question needs to be too late for what? Have we left it too late to keep ourselves safe? Yes. Have we left it too late to enable there to be some kind of smooth green transition? Unfortunately also, yes. Is it too late for us to be able to prevent the worst ravages of climate damage? No, not at all. Is it too late for us to be able to start to adapt to the world as it now is and the more challenging world still that will be coming? No, it isn't. And of course, one of the few advantages, I'm afraid to say, in real terms, of the COPs coming around each year is that they provide us with an opportunity to get serious about discussing these matters. And it is vital that we do so, because the world's citizens need to know, British citizens need to know, that our governments do not have us covered on this. And so we have to start to take care of ourselves. We have to start to build food resilience, and we need to challenge and unmask the pretensions of our government to keep us safe. The promises that Rishi Sunak will almost certainly try to make tomorrow about a sort of greener tomorrow and how Britain is going to get serious on climate are obviously not worth the words they're written on. In the light of the record of this Conservative government and Rishi Sunak himself. And what is
that is hard
crucial
for people. But Rupert, that is hard for people to understand. Why would any government, any prime minister, deliberately not do something to protect the next generation? It doesn't make sense. It is unbelievable.
That's a really great question. And of course, this is one of the reasons why people do find it hard to understand just how tough our predicament is. Because the reasoning goes something like this. Look, if it were really as bad as that, then surely our governments would be intelligent enough to act.
Exactly.
But there are a number of problems here. One problem is that our governments, especially this government, are in a certain amount of hock to big industrial interests and the interests of the rich, which are in the short term against acting. Another problem is that, of course, climate is a very difficult thing to tackle. because it is so diffuse, because it is so long-term, it's so easy for it to get knocked aside by more seemingly pressing sudden issues that come after a government and after a population and after a media, one after another. And this year has been an especially strong example of that. But that again is why it is just so crucial that we get some kind of grip on this and have some kind of proper longer term focus, because of course we all want to do what is right for our children. We all need to make our love and care for them into a reality. And the only way we can do that now is if we actually get serious about keeping a laser-like focus on the long term, on these deep structural issues. And of course, the beauty of it is, Stephen, that if we actually did get serious about tackling the climate and ecological emergency, we would simultaneously be able to tackle these other seemingly more pressing issues. So in terms of Ukraine, the crucial thing that we need to do is to wean ourselves off our dependence on fossil fuels, which empowers petro-dictators like Putin, who love the international free market in oil and gas. On the cost of living crisis, what we so badly need is for government to lead, and if government won't lead, for others to lead on enabling us all to have strongly insulated houses and to have good, clean, renewable energy, which of course is so much cheaper now than the alternatives anyway. You know, these really are no-brainers. These really are win-wins. It's what I call the beautiful coincidence. The very things we need to do in order to secure our future and our children's future from the ravages of climate are the very things we need to do, actually, in order to tackle these other crises and to make our lives better. And that's what we have to find the space to enable ourselves to see and to act on.
Dr. Rupert Read, thank you for talking to me.